And so, when we speak about one-pointedness, what we are really inviting is that we recognize how important it is to be all in. We could also describe this as the choice of fear or love, that the choice for love has to be all in. Because if there is any threads that are in fear, any threads that are not one-pointed, then the balance will go towards the fear. If the allegiance is with the mind, then the mind and the fear and the story of me is what is lived. That when we speak about one-pointedness, it is, in a way, to recognize how much doubt and skepticism we can have around this truth. That truth is not a path. Truth is immediate. Truth is here now. There's not a half truth, right? You can't have a little bit of truth. And we really have to recognize that we can't have one foot in fear and one foot in love and expect that life is going to be a reflection of love. The mind wants that because the mind doesn't want to leave its addiction to the story. The mind doesn't want to leave what it believes is safety. Even though it's misery, the mind is absolutely committed to misery. We have to say that because it's true, right? The mind doesn't know how not to be committed to misery, but immediately in the presence, here now, all of that is not here. And so if we focus within the world and the story and the fear and the misery, we just beget more of that. We just cycle within that. This is the world of cause and effect, the cycle of karma. Cycling here, it's very easy for the mind to be so critical. Oh, well, it doesn't work. Love, being with love doesn't work. Being in the being doesn't work. That's because the mind is focused upon itself, right? The mind doesn't know what it's talking about. The mind doesn't know about being in the being. The mind doesn't know whether this works or doesn't work. It's not an authority. And so it is to be so careful about allowing the mind to be an authority on something that it knows nothing about. The mind can be an authority of this teaching and that teaching, and this is good, this is bad, this works, this doesn't work. That's all an allegiance with fear. It's all comparison. And it doesn't mean anything about anyone but yourself. There's only you here. The mind is dreaming, and the dream is a dream of separation. Full stop. The mind is dreaming, and the dream is a dream of separation. Where there is a belief in my mind, your mind, this mind, that mind, there's separation, there's division. So when we speak of one-pointedness, wholeheartedness, it is this invitation to keep aligning with truth. Truth is here now. Truth is this moment, the presence here now. In a way, we can move from doubt to truth like this. It's not a path. We imagine it is with the mind because the mind puts everything in time and space. It's a path. Increments. I'll do the work. I'll fix this. I'll get myself ready for it. I'll be prepared, right? It's imagining something in the future. But imagining anything in the future is an absolutely unattainable goal because the goalposts keep changing, right? This is the nature of the mind, to imagine a future where I'm going to have what I want, where I'm going to feel the way I want to feel, that I'm going to fix this problem. I'm going to see through. Whereas truth is here now. It's only ever here now. We have to be very clear about this, because if we are resting in the delusion of time and space, if we are believing the mind's dream of separation, then this is what we are perpetuating. Now, there is, in this unfolding, when we are in allegiance with truth, in allegiance with love, there is still residual processing of our habits and our conditionings that happen, but it happens in the wide open field. We could say we have to have absolute, unquestionable faith in love, in love's victory. We have to find in our heart the absolute, unquestionable faith in truth, in love. And we have to have an awareness of the places that can keep us bound, that are skeptical, that are doubting. Because none of these places will lead us to what we are longing for. That is why we would say that longing and fulfillment are right here in this moment. The longing leads instantly to fulfillment when we are truly focused upon it. If we interpret the longing as desire, then we imagine that our longing will be fulfilled. And when we imagine that our longing will be fulfilled, we're imagining that it will be fulfilled by something external, some external force or power, even an external God, right? Even this whole idea of searching for God is a wild goose chase, right? You already are searching for God, searching for love, searching in the realms of the mind stream is always going to be a wild goose chase. It will never, ever lead to the fulfillment. The fulfillment is not in the dream. The fulfillment is in this moment here now. And at some point, the balance will tip where this recognition will dawn, and there will stop being a seeking in the dream for this unattainable goal. Anything that is imagined to be a goal that will be attained in the future is part of the dream of separation. This is where we could even say, on a certain level, practices, if we believe practices are going to lead us somewhere, this too is part of the dream. So when we speak of one-pointedness, we are speaking of an immediate truth, an immediate knowing of the divinity that you are, the purity that you are. And it's right here now in the presence of being. There is no voice that has an authority to say what works and what doesn't work, what is true and what is not true. There's no voice. Only the living direct experience is the proof, the living proof, the living answer. And it's here now. And so this speaking here, this sharing here, is a pointing to this, arising out of this. But it's not information to learn, and it's not pointing to a future, and it's not pointing to something that you believe in. It's about what is already here. And it's about attuning in this moment to the resonance. One-pointedness is not something that you aspire to. One-pointedness is here now. It's over. This moment. Here's the freedom. Here's the clarity. This moment. And so the question is, in the play of time, how much time is consumed researching and trying to find your way out of the dream? How much of your time is spent in the maze of the mind, following all of the paths that lead to dead ends, right? You have to explore this for yourself to find out, for the dawning in the heart to come. It can be expressed here a gazillion times, and you can ignore it a gazillion times. But in some precious moment, it will dawn, and you will realize the truth of what is being spoken, and that it's always been here, and it's the reality of who you are. In this invitation to recognize the amplification of the frequency, let's say the invitation is stronger than ever in the fine frequencies, because the collective consciousness is in the process of, within its allegiance with fear, within its power imbalance, the realm of the human collective consciousness is in the process of collapsing kind of into itself, collapsing into its fear. And we can see this in the collective consciousness on a certain level. And it makes us scrabble for answers. But we're not intended to scrabble within the play to try to find a way of making me safe, making me be okay in all of this. Move your investments, change all your money to crypto, right? All of this kind of nonsense that's all about the me trying to perpetuate itself and survive within a dream that is falling apart. It's to see through the dream. The dream will continue to fall apart, and the invitation to board the ark will continue to be here. But it's not about scrabbling around within the dream, trying to find a better delusion, right? Delusion is delusion. There's no better delusion and no worse delusion. Delusion is delusion. Delusion is separation. Delusion is the skepticism, the doubt, the fear, and it's just not reality. So we have to point very, very clearly and directly from this to this, because the mind is so committed to its delusion. The idea that I can fix this, I can work on this. Oh, I'll just spin around the merry-go-round a few more times, having a few more experiences, and then I'll be ready. And that's okay. But don't expect that you're living in truth and reality if your commitment is to the delusion. And don't sit in the delusion criticizing, because that in itself is, well, we won't put words to it, but it has a frequency which is pretty self-destructive. To criticize love, to be criticizing love, to be criticizing truth is like wallowing in self-hatred. It's a very destructive frequency to be living in. An idea that I have a better solution, I know the way, and scrabbling in the fear to try to make myself right. It's a frequency that is not going to be a comfortable frequency to live in. So You know, the proof of this is in the living. The proof of this is in the wideness of the heart, the depth of the joy, the wideness of the natural illuminated reality. This doesn't get spoken about here because there's anything else. There's just nothing else. There's nothing else to talk about. There's nothing else to talk about. It's that simple. There's nothing else to talk about but the incredible truth of this reality. And to speak about this is an invitation to remember this, to celebrate this, to recognize that the victory is already won. Nothing but love is ever victorious. There's no other choice. And the speaking of this is this constant invitation for the humbling to happen, because the mind that is in separation is powerful, and it believes its delusion so wholeheartedly. It's absolutely committed to its delusion. And in this, part of it is the doubt, the skepticism, the criticism, the judgment. But where are you living? How wide is the heart? How love-drenched is the life? How joyful are you in the presence of all that is? This is the measure. And everything is offering the possibility to live this. That it takes an absolute unshakable faith in love, in this truth. It takes to find in the presence of being here now a direct experience of this, and to trust this, because your own autonomous direct experience can recognize here now that in the presence of being, there's a felt sense of freedom, of peace, of natural presence, of love. And it may not feel like the experiences your mind is looking for, like a hit, a high. But it's all here. It's all here. Truly, everything shifts when our focus and our faith in reality shifts to one-pointedness, wholeheartedness, absolute faith in the divine. And yes, the life will be the living out of the residues, but it's where the heart is rooted, that the heart is rooted in a knowing. The heart is rooted in love. The heart is rooted in its wide open knowing of the being that just is. Because then there is this incredible trust, this natural faith in the wisdom of it all, that we don't actually need to know anything other than this truth, right? We imagine with the mind in separation that we need to have all this information, these systems, this learned knowledge, but that's all about control. It's all about a belief that I am in control. I am the doer. I've got this. I can control this. I can do this. I can make this better. But it's when this absolutely collapses into the realization you can of your own self do nothing. You can do nothing to fix yourself. All ideas of fixing will always come to a dead end in the maze. And that dead end will feel like you meet once again the loneliness. You meet once again the sense of lack. You meet once again the feeling that you have done something wrong. You meet yourself again in separation, in the maze of the mind, you will keep meeting yourself again and again and again in all of the ways, because fulfillment is not in the mind. Fulfillment is not in the dream. The reason that we keep running into disappointment or our own limitation is because we're being invited into the wider picture. We're being invited to the wideness of the heart, the infinite, eternal, timeless being. We're being invited to remember the truth of who we are, the perfect love that we are. And that perfect love is already perfect. It's not a work in progress. It's already perfect. The part that is in process is in the human lived experience, the process of refinement, of the conditionings and the protections. This is a process of purification and refinement, but it has to be happening not in the realm of believing I've got this, I'm controlling this, I'm going to fix this. It has to be happening in the realm of consciousness itself. It has to be the consciousness in limited patterns releasing into the unlimited. Because if it's in the mind, the patterns within the psychological functioning can only seemingly release into another compartment, right? It releases into limitation because the mind itself is limitation. So even if the mind thinks, oh, I'm having an experience of things changing, I'm having an experience, it's because the ego mind is enjoying itself and it's actually high on the belief that it's fixing itself. I've got this, I'm doing it, I'm having a good experience, right? We have to be so discerning. I'm having a good experience. Things are different. I'm feeling better. If it's in the realm of the mind, you will run in again to yourself. You will run into the wall of your own disappointment and essentially the core belief in separation. We will keep running into the core belief in separation until we truly put all our eggs in one basket, all of the eggs in the basket of love. We give it all to love. We give all of it to love. We trust love. We trust the intelligence. We trust the wisdom to take care of it. And this is where we open to the infinite field of possibility, where everything can morph and change. Everything can morph and change within a field of infinite intelligence, where when our perspective of seeing things shift, where we're not seeing from fear, we're not seeing, I am broken, I'll try and fix it. I am broken, I'll try and fix it. I'm broken, I'll try and fix it. If we keep moving in this way, we keep reinforcing our story, our belief in our brokenness. We have to give our brokenness to wholeness, to discover what is not broken here, what is whole here. In this moment here now, in the presence of being, the wholeness that is. This is where true shifting can actually happen. This is where true healing can actually happen. Because the healing is in itself healing. What healing is a shift in perception. It's a shift in perspective. It's a shift of the perspective that I'm the doer, I'm the controller, I am broken. The healing is the shift to recognize, oh, I'm not broken. I'm whole. I'm not what I thought I was. And in this rooted recognition, the residues that still can function through conditionings and protections in the human life as residues of separation, they have this possibility to come guided by the light of your own knowing. They come like moths to a flame to surrender themselves into the fire of truth. True healing can so much be the shift that says, I believed I was broken, but in truth I am whole. This is the most extraordinary healing. I believed my fears, but the truth is there is only love. To actually feel the resonance of this in your system is an absolute quantum leap within the consciousness. It shifts the patterns of limitation. It's not a belief. It's not shifting a belief. It's giving up a belief. Giving up a belief in limitation and letting go into the wide open field, the frequency of wholeness. We could say in truth, this whole unfolding is about shifting frequencies. So we don't always speak about it in this way, but here it is coming forward. We speak about it as intelligence, as wisdom, but this is frequency. If we are living in a dense frequency and we're trying to solve a seeming problem in a dense frequency, we're still moving within the limitation of dense frequency. We're still moving in limitation. We're shifting the me. We're trying to make a better me. But we're still held in this dense frequency. And what we are inviting is this openness to a finer frequency, the frequency of reality, the frequency of being. Now, in the presence here now, we open to this frequency and we can recognize it. We can recognize the freedom, the peace, the openness. And yet we keep refining into subtler and subtler abilities to recognize finer and finer frequencies. So everything that we are speaking of here is not so much part of the dream. We're actually speaking about living in a completely different reality to the dream. We're speaking about switching from the dream to reality by switching your attunement frequency to live in reality, to live in love. The mind can't understand this because the mind is of the dream. The mind is the dream. So as these words come, it is just about where there's a resonance, where there is an aliveness, something that just knows this truth. And every being has this capacity because you already are this truth. You already are whole. And so it's about where the resonance of recognition is, where you come alive, where the heart knows. And there's no understanding of the mind here, but there is a recognition of a frequency that is a kind of Eden, a heaven, a nirvana, right? It's this recognition of everything you are longing for because you already are this, right? You already are this, so the recognition is here. Where we run into trouble is where we recognize this and we start striving to create this on the surface of life from the mind. Now, this is where it could feel a little confusing because it could feel like, well, we're trying to create something better. We're trying to live closer to the land in alignment with nature. We're trying to grow our own food and we're trying to live in alignment. Now, if we are truly living in alignment, we will naturally start to flourish and flower in alignment. And yes, living close to the land, aligned with nature, growing food, eating seasonally, moving with the seasons, sleeping with the dark of night and rising with the sun of the day. All of these are natural flows of living aligned with nature. So don't let your mind hold you captive in ideas that the ways that you are living, let's say well-intentioned, are maybe part of the delusion. We know the delusion because we feel miserable in the delusion. We keep bumping into disappointment. We keep bumping into resistance and stress. And it's where we bump into resistance and stress that these are our cues. These are the places to inquire, the places that feel very aligned and alive and nourishing are the places that we don't have to worry about. These are the places where we're already living in reality. And yet our recognition of reality is the recognition of in the heart of the fine frequency. So let's say as well, we absolutely living in the fine frequency. We're living as one collective with humanity, even as one, of course, with the humanity that might be living in the belief of the delusion, because all of humanity is in truth divinity. And it's that some of the humanity is believing in separation and division and living in that power imbalance. The truth is that all beings belong to this divine reality. And our work is to live this, to open to this, and to live this right here on the surface of life. It's like it opens in the grace of the heart and the direct experience. And as it is more recognized and purification and refinement happens, it starts to be embodied on the surface of life. We start to live this. And part of this, let's say, deeper purification, refinement of the nervous system, is the refinement of all of the patterns of limitation. The denser frequencies get constantly recalibrated and upgraded. And we're given everything that we need in the flow of intelligence, the flow of wisdom, for these upgrades to happen. And we intelligently recognize it in our life experiences. We recognize a flow, a natural flow. We recognize something just appearing that feels like guidance, right? We recognize it feels easy, it feels beautiful, it feels supportive. And we move in the flow of wisdom, in absolute alignment with the flow of life and all that it is offering us. Now, where there is doubt, where there is confusion, that's because the mind is still acting as a superpower. And if the mind can still act as a superpower, as an authority, then this is just an incredible opportunity for inquiry. This is an opportunity to meet the confusion, to meet the questioning, because this whole unfolding is a divine, intelligent process of bringing the power back to its source, bringing the imagined dream back to its source, giving creation back to the creator, giving that created appearance of the dream back to the creator, back to the source, to recognize your oneness with creator frequency, to recognize your oneness. And we could also use the language here, the one self, pure knowledge, remembrance of only the self. It's important that we don't allow the mind to divide and create separations according to language. In a way, different teachings are just different ways of expressing. It's to discover the absolute truth that is in the heart of all teachings, all lineages, that what brings you alive in a seeming certain teaching is not the teaching, it's the truth of your own heart. So it's not to give your power to something outside of yourself, it's to bring the power of what you are recognizing back to your own heart, to recognize that the resonance that you feel when you hear truth, when you read or listen, the true power is that your heart is resonating at the fine frequency of remembrance. And when your heart is resonating at the fine frequency of remembrance, it's to not then give the power to, oh, the truth is over there, right? No, the truth is who you are, and the resonance of your heart is telling you, you know this, you are this. It's inviting you to deepen into the frequency of your own remembrance and to join with the source that might be inspiring you, but not to imagine that you're divided or less than what is inspiring you, but to absolute join in absolute equality, in absolute oneness with what is inspiring you, whether it is a teaching from the archives, we could say, or whether it is an alive teaching or sharing. Now, wherever that potency is, it's actually bringing alive the potency of your own knowing. And how precious is that? That the potency of your own knowing is like a doorway to enter into the remembrance of who you are here now, and to be here in the fine frequency of your own divine knowing, and open to this fine frequency absolutely taking over your system and refining then the denser frequencies. So as we open to this finer frequency, we then are the means for our own refinements. We are the means for our own purification to happen. So it's like the presence of love in your own heart is the means, like the flame that pulls all the moths of your conditioning and stresses forward to come into the light, to be able to be seen and recognized, and in the illumination to transmute and free you from what can distract you or pull you away from the truth of your own heart, right? So what we are speaking of here is the intelligence of this whole unfolding, but it's not to believe what is being spoken, it's to feel the resonance of it. And if it brings you alive and it feels alive as truth, as a frequency of truth, then let this be the doorway that carries you into a deeper sense of one-pointedness, a deeper faith in the wisdom, a deeper faith in love itself, that you're not ever giving your power to anything outside of yourself. You're being invited to actually give all of your power to yourself. Curiously, this can be the most terrifying thing. We're somehow wired to give power away, to believe that someone else has the answers, to believe that if we follow secondhand knowledge, that we will feel a certain kind of belonging, right? that our longing to belong leads us into the idea that we need to have certain kinds of permissions, certain kinds of companionships or communities, that we will feel a belonging when we can join in the delusion. But to join in the delusion is, of course, only going to perpetuate the delusion. So this is where discernment is necessary. Are we staying trapped in the story? Are we enjoying sharing the story and feeling a sense of love because we're sharing the story together, right? The ways that we have learned to connect is in the story, in the drama, in the victimhood, in the poor me. Oh, poor me, poor you. Poor me, poor you. Oh, poor you, poor you, poor you. Ah, poor me, poor me, poor me. Oh, poor you, poor you. Right? It's this way that we've learned to connect and to feel like, oh, I feel so much better that you're feeling the same sense of victimization and depression and misery. I'm so glad we can talk about the news and the propaganda of the delusion, right? I'm glad we can be skeptical together. I feel better now. I feel better because we're joining and I have a companion in this. So this is where we need absolute laser sharp discernment, discrimination, right? What is reality? What is the delusion? And as we open to recognize the presence of being that we are, the frequency of love, we start to be able to discern where are we uplifted? Are we joining in an upliftment? Are we joining where we're recognizing our wholeness? Are we sharing in the knowing we are whole, we are one in love? And yes, we can share. These are the purifications, these are the situations that I'm facing, but we're not diving into that deluge of victimhood, that we're joining in love, we're uplifting, we're holding the space that says, I will not meet you in the victim story. I will meet you in love. I will even hold presence for you while you're experiencing fear, and I will keep pointing you to the truth. I will hold you here, but I won't join you there in that frequency. I'll hold the frequency of truth as you move through and come to a remembrance of this finer frequency, of the love that you know that you are, right? That we make this commitment in the heart to meet in love, in wholeness, in the knowing, the unquestionable knowing. This is what we are. This is where we are one. And this is the wilds of the human experience. It has a very different flavor to be sharing, even the intensities and the explorations, right? You know, to be having a conversation about how do you feel about meeting grief from here, right? What is it to meet grief, you know, when a companion, a beloved companion leaves the body? What is that when we're resting in love? And yes, I still feel tenderness. I know that there's no loss in truth. I know nothing is lost. And yet that my nervous system has a certain tenderness, and there's tears that come. It's not to move to the idea I shouldn't have grief. I should push this grief down. I should be just joyful and happy and, oh, no loss here. We've got to let the entirety of the fullness of our refinement and purification happen. We want to be honest. Living divine reality is being real, right? So in this example, we might just really notice, well, what is grief? What happens when I allow my system to sob with the tears? Yes, the mind believes that something is lost. The heart knows that nothing is lost, but the mind is somehow believing something is lost, like there's a longing to encounter and be together with this being that feels like there's a goneness, feels like a goneness. When we actually really open to this, it's like how depth of knowing there is love has the capacity to be even deeper, because we can sob and we can feel the tenderness. We can know that there's only love. And before you know it, you're going to find that your companion is right here in your heart. In the sobbing, in the sense of grief, you find, oh, this grief is love. And you actually bring what you're missing, what you feel is lost, alive in your heart even more by allowing the reality of the full, let's say, the body, the movement of the flow of consciousness to move from a denser frequency to refine and transmute through the nervous system, right? It's like we have to allow a holistic experiencing of the human life. We have to allow it to move through the body. Yes, we know I am not the body. You're not the body, because you are eternal and infinite in truth, and the body is finite. But as long as we are in a human experience, we want to open to the holistic nature of this, that we could say that we are intelligence, right? The formless is intelligence, and the form is intelligence. The formless, the unseen, the unmanifest is intelligence, and the manifest is intelligence. The spirit is intelligence, the essence, true nature, the being is intelligence, and the matter is intelligence. It's all one intelligence. And it's almost as if the true nature is embodied somehow in the intelligence of our human body. Now, we have known our human body as a dense frequency, but what if even our human body is an intelligence that has the possibility of refining out of our belief in body, flesh, physicality, meat and bones and blood and systems? What if this is all in truth intelligence? And we have the capacity as intelligence to experience the physicality in a more refined way, and in that rejuvenate and refine what we have believed the physicality to actually be known as a living body of light, a living body, we could say, of a finer frequency. What if we can actually refine the frequency of what we have known as body from a dense frequency to the recognition that it's actually a fine frequency? And what if in this amazing healing and rejuvenation can happen to things that we imagine, oh, I've got this disease, oh, this is what's going on, this pain, this ache. What if within our one-pointed faith in the intelligence that we are, we have the capacity to completely shift the perspective and actually what is going on in the lived experience? What if it's possible that everything that we think we are bound in and what we believe in is not the living reality? What if our humanness is not limited by the condition and the belief in separation? What if our humanness is actually way more intelligent and profound than we have ever had the capacity to know? That even the understanding of I am not the mind, I am not the body, so therefore transcend the mind body, ignore the mind body, and just live in the transcendent. What if we have the capacity to actually evolve our knowing of what we are, that we are so much more? We have this body, we have this human lived experience, and even as we open to the truth of who we are, the seeming body is still here and the seeming lived experience is still here. So why, right? What if we have the capacity for this lived experience to be a completely upgraded, refined, living reality than what we imagine with the mind in separation this life can be? Just to receive what is being shared as a frequency and to see what happens within your attuned recognition. If there is a resonance, if there is something that feels true, enlivened, alive, as we offer this possibility. Now, of course, where the mind is rooted in fear, it will say, don't be so ridiculous, right? You're born, you live, you die, it's all over, right? But what if that isn't the reality of what we are here for and what is truly being lived? What if we are in an incredible evolution in consciousness and that it's not personal, and that this evolution of consciousness is that our lives are one life, evolving its capacity to know itself and remember its divinity, and to transcend anything and everything that has ever been known in the human mind, and to actually open to an intelligence and a frequency that is before and beyond what can even be imagined. What if this is here now? We're not speaking of a future, right? We're not speaking of a future. We're speaking of what if here now you are a living intelligence resonating at a far finer frequency than your mind can understand. And what if what it takes is for you to fully attune with absolute faith to your longing and your ability and capacity to open to the knowing of the being in yourself. And this is what refines you. You know, beings in the archives of teachings have known this, but they have spoken it in code. And it hasn't been brought forward in obvious ways because the consciousness of the collective hasn't had the capacity for this to be brought forward fully. But all of the beings that we are so enlivened by, particularly often in the Vedic teachings, the figures like Ramakrishna and Ramana and Anandamayi Mar, etc., 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 right? Many, many, many. Papaji, many, 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 right? All of these beings have known this, right? They know this. But every being is in a time, has been in a time in the collective where what can be spoken is only what the collective can receive. But the pointing has always been there. It's always been here. It's the same pointing. And it's just that we have a capacity within the collective consciousness to receive it in a different way. It has been interpreted through a mind in limitation. And yet, what it has been pointing to is the recognition of living this right here on the surface of life. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi very much was speaking of this, right? But the way that it is spoken is only in the way that is seemingly current for what the consciousness can receive. And where consciousness is now in its evolution is in such a profound shifting that that's why there is like a sense of amplification and of deeper invitation to board the ark that is happening, is because it's really that the possibility of this quantum leap in consciousness is so possible and so available and so necessary to shift the balance for the whole, right? It's about shifting the balance for the whole collective. And what it looks like is all of the things that we speak of. It looks like one-pointedness, realizing the delusion of the dream, and that the dream is a dream that is in the process of like self-destruction in a certain way, although that isn't really happening. It's happening in the collective dream, because the collective dream is a dream of separation. It's a huge power imbalance. So what we're speaking of is bringing together the sense of the collective and the fine frequency of reality, and how we can live this on the surface of life. It's absolutely essential to live this on the surface of life, to allow the children to blossom in the true capacity that they have, because the children already know this, right? The children mostly. I mean, of course, there are children that are dragged into the dream of separation and are absolutely disconnected from nature and source. But the children that are being born to, let's say, conscious parents, they know this, and they're actually here to upgrade the parents. They're here to upgrade the communities so that they can truly flower, right? So we are invited into this so that the shift that is happening can truly be lived on the surface of life, that we realize that it's not abstract, that it's not about transcending and living in an abstract reality of a kind of them and us. It's about being the living of life that is the force of integration, being the living of life that is a resonant, finer frequency that reverberates in support of the whole, that we cannot imagine with the mind. And that is why just to receive what is being shared and to open as much as there is an openness. Ramana would say, every being will open only to the capacity that they can. But if we open to the capacity that we can, then we have the capacity to refine that frequency, refine and refine, that we're not as dense, We're not made of dense material in the way that we think we are. It's almost as if we could refine what we see as our bodies of meat, of flesh and bone. And we realize that it's all actually made of light. It's like light matrix. It's all made of light. And that we're pulled in this power imbalance to burden our systems with processed foods that are actually just pure poison, right? That's the great imbalance there in the form of food. Our digestive systems collapse and we get sick and we become living mush, right? We're living mush. And that's being bound in separation. It's like we're being invited to refine our digestive systems so that we live much lighter, that we're not taking in and being pulled into separation through all of these means that are being offered to us, that our systems have the capacity to refine and digest in more and more refined ways. We could even say perhaps our digestive systems might refine to be able to be living on light, that our whole appearance can shift to be able to live being nourished by the light and the sun. And we have a way of already recognizing this. We recognize how nourished we are by light, by nature, by true natural water sources, swimming in oceans, lakes and rivers, how it shifts the frequency. And it does, right? So when we're disconnected from nature, we're disconnected from the naturalness. The more we fall into the recognition of the being that we are, the way that our seeming physicality refines is through aligning with nature. Simple things like eating seasonally, eating what's available, not using all those processed and refined foods, keeping everything incredibly simple, not eating huge plates of food that the digestive system can't actually handle and digest in one sitting, that then leads to just undigested toxins just sitting in the system and fermenting, and actually then breeding that toxicity through the digestive system, blocking things up, right? Just the digestive system is the nervous system, right? It's consciousness. And actually refining our digestive system is a way of refining consciousness. Or we could say that as our consciousness refines, our digestive system refines. We start eating more intuitively because we're not eating from the conditionings of the mind that is addicted to all kinds of toxins, right? Even sugar, right? Sugar is just a trap. It's part of the delusion of separation. Eat this, get trapped, get hooked. And then you'll just keep consuming more and more and more. When you really start to open, you can't believe what you can see. You can't believe what an intricate web of delusion it is, and how, as we zoom out and we really attune with the fine frequency of pure love, perfect love of the divinity that we are, we see how entangled we can be in habits and beliefs, and how so much of the world is a creation of the mind and our addictions, and it's just constantly trying to pull us in and trying to diminish our transparency, our light. And that is why, as we truly live this, we become more naturally radiant, right? We become a living radiance. We become a living light source, because that truth filters all the way through. It touches all of our life. We become this flow of creativity, of illumined seeing, right? So receive these words wherever they are landing, and know that it's absolutely not about the mind starting to create systems. Okay, I've got to give up this and I've got to change and be like this. It's not about that, because if we try to live like that from the mind, we will bump into ourselves at some point. It's about an illumination, and it's also to know that within our lived experience, because of the density of the collective frequency, it is still very much in process. But we can open to this. We can open to this frequency, and we can live at these finer frequencies, and we can allow the incredible experience of experimentation to move through our systems and experience subtle shifting happening. We can recognize subtle differences of intelligence happening, where we stop craving for all of those baked pies and things that we once used to crave, and that suddenly we're not wanting the same things, that we're actually pulled to a greater simplicity. And this is in no way to say this is right, this is wrong. It's not about that, because everything that's natural has a place. And it's okay to take ingredients, combine them, and create deliciousness out of the intelligence. But the heart knows, we know where we're taking in, and our digestive system is just turning our bodies to mush, right? So we want to just have a deeper and finer awareness of all of this, right? We have the possibility of living at this fine frequency of intelligence, of being the formless and the form dancing as an appearance, right? Getting lighter, everything getting lighter, clearer, more radiant, right? So that your skin is shining, right? Your eyes are shining, your heart is glowing, right? Everything is an expression of your inner knowing, right? Let it be. Let this life be this incredible experiment of what is possible. Nothing is right, nothing is wrong. We are the living evolution of consciousness. The lived experience is this, in motion, in flow. And how precious and beautiful it is to have a heightened awareness in this, and to be aware of the refinements that are attempting to happen through our systems, right? So here we are, the invitation, right? Notice what has shifted since we started, right? Notice, where are you now? Notice that one-pointedness isn't in the future. One-pointedness is here as you recognize the frequency of your own heart that knows. You know this truth. One-pointedness is not the mind's idea of diligence or perfection, where there's a critic or a driver that's kind of backlashing for you to do better. One-pointedness is this absolute moment of unquestionable faith that says, yes, only love, only love, only the glory. Right now in this moment, thy will be done. I am yours. There is only you. And let it be so, and show me how I am yours, right? Whatever way that flowers in your own heart, let the one-pointedness of this moment be a radiant celebration where you can feel the frequency shift. You feel the frequency shift. You're going to notice that certain pains and aches diminish. And it shows you, oh, okay, that's not set in stone. You're suddenly feeling completely different. You're resonating at an entirely different frequency because you're pointing all your attention to your longing, to the focus of what you're longing for. And you're saying yes to receive the fulfillment and the wholeness here now. Okay, great glory, I'm yours. This moment, I'm yours, right? And it's not about saying, show me, give me proof so that I feel safe here, right? It's not about allowing any cunning threads of the mind that says, well, I'm 99% here, but I'm not sure. It's this inner frequency that's just take me into you, where you lose your sense of mind, lose your sense of holding on. You lose your sense, I am someone, and this is all of my criteria and information that makes me individual. It's like you throw yourself into the bubbling pot of truth, into the soup of oneness. Just let yourself jump in and join in the wholeness, in the oneness, to just say, Alleluia, let it be done, let it be so. It already is. And here it is. Here it is. Here you are, the all that is, just this moment, just this, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, just this. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Love, 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 love. Love is all there is. Only love is here, right? Let what is true saturate your whole being, take you over, and carry any threads of resistance all the way in to this delicious soup of love, where there's nothing else, no other possibility. And you can absolutely feel there's no other possibility. There's no other possibility. There's no other possibility. What on earth? What on earth? But this, there's no other possibility. There is no other possibility. And the mind creeps in and says, yes, but what about? No, 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 no. No other possibility but this. No other possibility but love. What if you are this living truth in every moment? No other possibility than this glorious celebration. No other possibility than this. What if becomes what is right now? Doubt, skepticism is truth. It's just about the perspective of seeing. It's about your heart being a living celebration. What happens? Find out. Find out what happens to your friends, your families, your children. Find out what happens if you are a living celebration. Find out. Don't allow the mind to come in and say, oh, yeah, but. Find out what it is to feed the children from here. Find out what it is to go to work here with a living celebration of oneness in the heart. Find out what it is to have a conversation with your mother with this living celebration in your heart. Be willing to be the effulgence and the beauty of this living celebration, right? And catch the subtlety of how skepticism and doubt, how Eeyore can come in and say, well, that's all very well, Pooh. You've got a pot of honey now, but what happens when the honey runs out? Right, what you going to do then? Right, then you're going to be miserable again. What if you are Your own heart is the eternal pot of honey that just keeps the nectar flowing. What if you are the eternal source of nectar? What if you are the eternal source of love? And what if you don't have to believe that it's outside of you? What if you are a living wellspring right here now? What if you are the living truth? Are you willing to find out what is just this, just this, just this, just this? Let the eyes open wider than they have ever seen. Let the heart stretch wider than it has ever known. And let all that you are be the true infinite expression that you are. To not know anything but this. To not know anything but this. And just to be here. Just to be here. Where anything is possible in this infinite field. Anything is possible. This is the glory. This is the glory, divine reality, right? Now to look upon anything that feels to be out of alignment. What is there seeing now, right? Just to be here. Just to be here. The willingness to allow shifting and change to happen. To allow there to be a different living reality than what you have imagined. To live this right on the surface of life, to be a living embodiment of perfect love. To not know what that is, what that means, and yet to open to the incredible possibility. And have fun. Have fun. God's dream. God's dream is right here in your heart, right? The dream as God intended, right? That there never has been the distortions that the mind has created. There never has been separation. And it's to live at this frequency. To know that whatever happens, this frequency is always here. This is always here. This is the truth of who you are. And the heart knows. The heart knows. The heart always knows. The knowing is eternal. The knowing is infinite. And the knowing is right here now.